We made it, dude. We're
What up,
live.
Ian? How are you?
Very good, James. Jimmy. Do you ever go by
Yeah.
James?
That's my birth name, but I've gone by Jimmy my whole life.
Do you ever go by Jim?
I did. Back when I was an employee, I went by Jim after I graduated, and my mom was like, Jim sounds more professional than Jimmy. So I went by Jim. So a lot of people back when my corporate life knew me as Jim, but I ditched it after when I started going YouTube. I'm like, I think of myself as Jimmy. My friends, my family growing up have always called me Jimmy. I'm just Jimmy. Like, even with my name being James, I don't think of myself as James. It's almost someone else's name.
Or Jamie. That's just too far.
Yeah.
I like Jimmy. You've kind of like cornered the Jimmy market.
Yeah.
Dude, let's kick it off, man. You just got back. Okay, so people that don't know your work, it's Bright Insight on YouTube. Bright Insight. I think it's Bright Insight 6 on Twitter. Yep. But your stuff is phenomenal. I mean, when I first saw the videos, like 2018 is when I first saw your work, when you were just blasting out the Rakat structure.
Yeah.
And like, basically you put it on the mainstream map. And it's something that I'd seen for like a year prior. And somehow you made a concise video that was like, yo, bro, look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Yeah. To anyone that's not familiar, it's called the Richat structure, spelled Richat, but it's also more commonly known as the Eye of the Sahara. So anyone listening that's never heard of this, Google it. Google Eye of the Sahara and look at Google Images, and it'll show you a bunch of satellite imagery. And I guarantee you, a vast majority of the people listening, unless they're familiar with my work or whatever, most people that I meet in my life have never seen or heard of it before. And it's one of those things, when you see it, you're like, what the hell is this thing? It's like nothing else seen anywhere else on Earth. And it just so happens to match more than a dozen striking similarities to Plato's tale of the lost ancient capital city of Atlantis. And so that's kind of what put my channel on the map for sure.
I'm going to pull up, this is actually the Google Maps of it. So,
oh, nice.
So what are these 8 things that Plato said it resembles? So I'm going to give people context. I love to pull this up. This is Africa. Everybody knows Africa. And you come in here and something happened. I mean, I look at this smearing of sand. I don't know if the ocean because after the flood, 12,800 years ago, these comets shattered over North America and over like Siberia, and they peppered the glacial continents, just melted all this ice and caused huge catastrophic global floods. This is a lot of evidence at the end of the Younger Dryas period. And when I look at this, I see like the ocean just surging onto the land. I've heard some people have said that it was actually coming back in the other direction as well. But
it may have came from the Mediterranean. It's hard to say. But if you zoom in, these are striations in bedrock that whatever catastrophic force of water that went over this took everything along with it, and down to what you have now are textbook striations of fluvial erosion. And it's inexplicable. Mainstream science never thought to look at it. And so as far as to answer your question about these similarities, well, Plato had described the capital city of being made up of concentric circles, specifically 3 of water and 2 of land, which would match the Richat structure with water in it, which it did, because those water blemishes that you see, the white blemishes that you see down in the southerly part are salt. It's a little known fact that salt has been mined out of the Western Sahara for hundreds of years. But further than that, when you pan out, you could see that there's this opening, and Atlantis was said to have an opening to the sea at the south. So, or scroll in more so right there. Where
like right here. Now. This looks like it was made by humans, like cut. This looks too straight to be naturally formed. Did they come in there and cut this out?
I just don't know. I don't know, because here's the thing. Some people will say, when it comes to like giving a rebuttal for this being a potential location of Atlantis, will say, well, it's natural. It's not man-made. That's what people will say. And what's interesting is that Plato had described Atlantis being created by the god Poseidon. And the ancient Greek word for Poseidon was Lord of the Earth or Father of the Earth, which to me sounds like a modern day translation for Mother Nature. And also Poseidon was said to be god of the seas and earthquakes. So I'm like, for something so large, and to anyone looking, this is approximately 25 miles across, it would seem to me that it would be something that's natural. But to keep going, and I can open up some of my slides, Atlantis was said to be made up of red, black, and white color stone, which matches what you see at the Richat. In fact, let me just bring mine up. Let me do a little share screen here. 1 second.
Yeah, while you're pulling that up, I'm just gonna. I mean, all these ancient riverbeds, all these ancient waterways. These are ancient rivers right here. This obviously this looks carved out. this is nearby to the capital, what could probably be the capital city. Like they dug out a moat or something, land bridge, and then who knows what was in there. Maybe this was water. Maybe they stored fresh water in here. I really don't know. But that does not look like a natural. That looks like it was carved out. And all the ancient waterways, like they were said to be like farmlands and stuff all over here.
Right.
But then, I mean, really the meat and the potatoes. Yeah, I'm going to pull up your screen now.
So here's examples of stones at the Richat structure. And again, Atlantis was said to be made up of red, black, and white color stone, which is a striking similarity here, but it goes further. Atlantis was said to, here's another example, but Atlantis was said to have a massive mountain chain to the north with a river coming from it. And what you're looking at here is the Atlas mountain chain just north of the Richat structure. And what's so important about the name Atlas is that was said to be the name of the very first king of Atlantis, Atlas. And not only that, historically, the very first known king of Mauritania, which is the country that the Richat is located in, just so happens to be named Atlas. It's a pretty strange coincidence that the first name of these geological sites, the mountains and as well as Mauritania, happens to have the name of the first king of Atlantis.
You know what I'm trying to figure out is it the same Atlas? Because like the Kingdom of Mauritania, what is it, like 7,000, 6,000 years old? But then this guy was like 12,800 years old. So did they name the guy after the guy?
I would say that. I would say it's not the same individual. It's more of so that it was passed down. That would be the explanation. But there's no other place called Atlas.
And the dude he carries the earth on his back. It's like they circumnavigated the globe way back.
Yeah. In fact, I got him right behind me. I don't know if you can see that. A little statue of him I got on Amazon. Pretty sweet. It's got some good weight to it too.
There's a tendency for me to like just spark out in all these different directions while we're talking. Do you think that the Atlanteans circumnavigated the globe?
Well, they were said to be an advanced seafaring civilization. And so, yeah, I think that it's totally possible. And modern academics will say that transoceanic sea travel wasn't possible and never happened until Christopher Columbus in 1492 sailed the ocean blue. I think that's silly. I think that we just don't know. Humans are clever, and we've always been explorative in nature, that we go looking for mysteries. And it seems to me that it's not unreasonable to conclude that ancient humans would have done so. But, hey, they'll say there's no evidence. I don't know if you can see my slide right here, but just to add one more thing is you're looking at the ancient Tamanrasset River, which dates back from 11,700 years ago to 5,000 years ago. And it flowed from the Atlas Mountains, went right north of the Richat, and flowed out to the Atlantic. And this is an unbelievably important detail because some people say that based on the elevation the Richat is currently at above sea level, it couldn't possibly be it. But it's like, if you look at the translation of the word island, because it's supposed to be the lost, is an island. Atlantis was supposed to be an island that fell into the bottom of the ocean. But what's interesting is that the ancient Greek word for island had Nessos and Nesson had 5 different meanings. Peninsula, promontory, but particularly one of which was land within a continent surrounded by lakes, rivers, or streams. And so it makes it another compelling argument. Something else is that Atlantis was said to have an abundance of gold. Its outer walls were said to be lined in it. And it turns out, and I didn't know this till not all that long ago, but there's a 1851 treaties of Mauritania for their ancient resources. And apparently, let me go to this right here. This is mid 1800s, by the way. It is a well-authenticated fact that previous to the discovery of America, Europe was supplied to a great extent with gold from Mauritania. And it just so happens that the richest man ever known to have existed in all of human history is Mansa Musa, who was king of the Mali Empire, which consisted of partly of modern-day Mauritania, and he got his wealth from gold. In fact, the Bambouk gold mines, which were his at one point, account for more than 50% of all the world's gold supply today. So a lot of other places that people speculate was Atlantis. It's like, well, did they have gold? Did they have elephants? Because, the Sahara, a lot of people aren't aware of that. The Sahara is just not today. It's not what it was 5,000 to 12,000 years ago. It was a lush green tropical paradise that had the largest network of rivers and freshwater lakes ever known to have existed. And so exotic creatures like elephants, which were known to be in abundance in this region of the Western Sahara, it's just another compelling similarity. And, like I was just mentioning, the Green Sahara, the studies have come out in the last few years. But let me get off my soapbox for a second. I don't want to just keep rambling because I can.
Oh, well, what happened 5,000 years ago? Like the river, you were showing me that river that came down from the north through the mountains past
Yeah.
Atlantis. But so 12,800 years ago, the comets hit. And then what, 800 years after that, another round, like some of them were still in orbit. And like 800 years later, more of them came down and just
So
torched the earth again.
this is speculative. Like it's not 100% confirmed. There is a lot of evidence that suggests that that it's called the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, that the North American ice shelf was obliterated by a comet, a fractionalized comet impact, and that's like the leading theory, which I think is very, very plausible. But to anyone listening, I know there's gonna be somebody sharpshooting us and be like, "This is not confirmed." Da, da, da. It's like, but it makes sense. There's evidence of it. But the theory involving what turned the Sahara from a green paradise into a desert is allegedly, they believe the leading theory on that is that it has to do with the Earth's tilt and that it's fluctuated and it just changed its environment, which is an incredibly important thing to discuss in itself because we live in this world where everything, involving man-made climate change, it's like, why are you never hear them taking into consideration anything involving the Earth's precessional tilt and how that affects changes in environment here on Earth? It's one thing if we got obliterated by a comet. That's one thing. People can wrap their head around it. But I don't hear anybody talking in the context of climate change what happened to the Sahara Desert. And I think it's going to be an incredibly important factor in these conversations when we're debating the rate of change that humans are having on Earth.
Is it possible that 12,800 years ago, the comets caused the global catastrophic flood that flooded a lot of sand up into this gorgeous green continent and sanded a lot of it, but it was still there were still some rivers and some forests. And then like by 5,000 years ago, because of the tilt or whatever, it just totally dried up?
That seems plausible. What's interesting to mention, though, is that all this sand you see in the Sahara, the endless miles of sand dunes, that came from the ocean. So let me just say that according to mainstream science, they say the last time the Sahara was under the ocean was between 56 and 66 million years ago at the time of what's called the Trans-Saharan Seaway. But when you look at these textbook striations of water erosion blasting across the Sahara, it seems to me that this is more recent than the time of the dinosaurs. And not only that, the Trans-Saharan Seaway, let me see if I have a slide on it in my folder here, but I don't on this one, but I can dig it up elsewhere. But it doesn't matter. The point is that the Trans-Saharan Seaway never is annotated to have flown west over the Richat structure through the Western Sahara. It went south of it. So this water erosion, which is there for anyone that has eyes to see, can see that something happened far more recent that is unknown involving the Sahara Desert. So there's mystery here. A lot of people will say, well, if this was true, I would have heard about it before. But people have to understand that this is not, when it comes to the topic of cataclysms, this is not something that mainstream science or academics entertain. They think it's pseudo and fringe and BS. They look at it and they're like, oh, wait a second. The Bible talked about a great flood. So that's, of course, false. That's not possible. So, next. So, this is something that's only getting attention now involving the Western Sahara Desert. But it's something that, unfortunately, scientists just haven't been looking at.
What is the Trans-Saharan Seaway?
So watch this. Let me just bring up Google because my slide on it, I want to go digging.
Yeah, I'm dipping around for it myself.
So watch this. Boom. Wait a second. Great. Let me find another one. This right here. So the ocean went through the Sahara Desert. And let me bring up a bigger slide here or a bigger picture. Stand by. Come on, baby.
Give it to me, dog. Yeah, look at that. What? So that's ocean?
Yeah, the ocean. And this, they say it's between 56 and 66 million years ago. But if you look, I don't know if you can see my mouse moving. It does not annotate it going over the Western Sahara. And again, this is like 56 to 66 million years ago estimated, which, let's be real, a 10 million year window of an estimation is so wildly big. I mean, just to put this in perspective, humans go back, 2-3 million years, not in their same cranial cavity, but basically, humanoids, 2-3 million years. So if we're talking about a window of 10 million years, it's such a wide range that it's kind of like, it just goes to show that we don't know everything. And I want people to be reminded of that. But as you can see here, it does not annotate it going west over the Richat. But, anyone that looks over the Western Sahara for themselves can see that something happened. You can see it go from what I think was the Mediterranean, flowed to the west and then south and then westward again over the Rishot. And that would imply that this is just an unknown event. I mean, what could have done that? We're talking about a force of water here that is so mind-bogglingly huge. It defies what we thought was possible here on Earth.
How high were the waves purported to be that came in onto the shore? I've heard miles
So that's
high.
the thing. That's the thing. It would have to have been miles. And that's this is not supposed to be possible, right? So this kind of ties into the realm of what, they'll call pseudoscience and fringe. Like, I can't prove it, but it's there, something happened here, and this goes beyond small localized floods.
It might not even been that the waves were so high, but what happened was I learned not only did the comets smatter the North America and melt all that ice, so you had all this waves of water flushing, but because all that ice melted, the ground that was underneath the glaciers went up because the weight of the ice was no longer there to press it down. So all that land went up, and then all this land in other areas of Earth went down because that land raised so fast in North America. So not only did Atlantis get hit by a bunch of water, it also sunk down because of the repression.
That's the theory. And there's evidence of this. For example, when it comes to Antarctica, so with that immense amount of weight, so North America had between 1 and 2 miles thick of ice on it, and the amount of weight on that is almost, mathematically inconceivable. It's so much weight. So essentially the Earth works as a sponge, the crust, I should say. And so it'll kind of flex back up once that weight is off. And they've seen evidence of this, say, in Antarctica. It's covered in 2 miles of ice almost in some areas there. And it's caused the land to depress, as they've come to find out through studies and core samples and drilling. So yeah, it's pretty wild. So it's a pretty compelling argument because, when it comes to that water that would have melted off the North American ice shelf, it would have changed the ocean currents, which then would change weather patterns. So when it comes to the Sahara Desert, I think it probably had to do with the change in the Gulf streams. The streams, the ocean currents affect temperature on Earth more than anything besides the sun. And actually, it is influenced by the sun as well. So, like, for example, the UK, England, they don't get a ton of snow, but they're far up there. They're not quite in the Arctic, but they're up there, but they get far less snow than New York. So and it's all because of the Gulf Stream that goes up the Atlantic, and it warms the environment. So the theory is that if the North American ice shelf got obliterated and melted rapidly, it would have that fresh water would have poured into the ocean and would have thus changed the currents. So it's pretty wild. Something crazy happened here on Earth 12,000 years ago.
I'm gonna pull it up again just because looking at this thing is like, I mean, I can spend hours just looking at this and looking at all the little pieces and parts of like this is like the outer ring of water, I would imagine.
That's what that would have been if it's the site. Like, I'm open-minded enough to know that it's possible that it's not, but the thing is that there's so many similarities that are so consequential. The most detailed and consequential aspects of this legend of Atlantis matches the Rishot. And to me, I'll be honest, it is, in my opinion, by far the most likely site. And I do believe that it was. It's possible that it wasn't. I'm open-minded enough to know that I don't know. Like, what's that? Is it from Socrates? It's the true wisdom is to know that you don't know. So it's like, hey, I wasn't alive at that time. What I do know is that it is premature and foolish for anyone to say, no, it wasn't. It's one thing to have doubts. It's one thing to scrutinize the topic and to figure out the truth. But it is still a mystery. And I should also say this. The Eye of the Sahara is a geological mystery. The consensus is that it was most likely a collapsed volcanic dome, but you won't find any other examples anywhere else on Earth that look just like this. I've seen other examples of collapsed volcanic domes, and there is a circular depression nature to it, but nothing like this with the repeated concentric circles.
Yeah, I heard that
specific.
That it was like an underground eruption that didn't erupt all the way. That's probably what you're saying, is a dome volcano that didn't explode. It just hit the land and caused like a ripple.
Swelled.
And that could have happened 20 million years ago. And then humans came along and found it and were like, holy shit, let's set up a kingdom here because this is easy to defend.
That's what I'm saying, is that, because again, let me just be clear. A lot of people who speak out against this theory will say, it's a natural formation. It's not it. And I'm like, wait a second. If you look at the Greek translations the word island, and as well as for being created by Poseidon, who is said to be the father of the earth. I'm like, it seems to me that it would be natural. But not only that, some people will say, well, it was an island in the ocean. So now I'm going to say, well, wait a second. Are you saying that islands aren't natural all of a sudden? Of course, it would be something natural. And we build on geological natural formations throughout the world all the time. In fact, I should reshare my screen here just to paint a picture for people. Give me half a second. I'll bring this right up.
Absolutely.
Because people need to understand that, this is something that we've been doing and we haven't stopped doing and we'll continue to do through all of human history. So watch this. Let me just bring up half a second here. You got to keep in mind, I got like thousands and thousands of slides. Okay, so here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, what is that?
This is, I think it's in South America. I can't remember. This is Indonesia, maybe. Forgive me. I don't know where it's at. But the point is just look at it. Look at this. This is a geological formation that few would have thought to build on, but that's what we as humans do. We build on top of cliffs. We build on top of, shallow seas. Like this is, I believe, in Florida right here, or it could be Panama. But the point is that we build in places that would seem to be unlikely, just like the Native Americans of North America. We're building in caves, we're building in all kinds of exotic places. We do it in Italy. Look at that, like on the side of cliffs. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is that building on natural formations is what we do, have done throughout history, and do today, and will continue to do so in the future. And again, this goes back real quick to Poseidon. The definition, this is right out of Encyclopedia Britannica. Poseidon was the god of the sea and of water generally, earthquakes, and horses. And what's interesting is that clearly the Richat was blasted by the ocean. So I find it interesting that they would credit to being have created by the god of the sea and water. But not only that, just to cite my sources here, the name Poseidon in ancient Greek means either husband of the earth or lord of the earth. And I know I already said it, but just to reiterate, that's Mother Nature. It's literally saying that, like, yeah, it was created naturally. That's my opinion.
Wasn't
that's the argument?
Was that Atlas's father in mythology, Poseidon? Is he the father of Atlas?
Yeah. So Poseidon had 5 sets of twins, so 10 boys. They were all boys, and the very first born was named Atlas. So Atlas went on to become the king of Atlantis.
And they had a tendency to be like, my father created everything. Shut up. Don't question it. So
right.
I could see them being like, yeah, Poseidon made it all. Now don't question it and die, mortals, or whatever the hell they're manipulating.
Right. And let me actually, while I'm on a roll here, let me just say something else, because a lot of the people that speak against the Richat will say, well, it's not west of the Pillars of Hercules. Well, if you actually look at the citation, and this is right out of the Critias, and this is right on MIT's website, because it's open, it's open source. The Critias, it's thousands of years old. Anyone can read it or source it online for free. Excuse me. But it was an island situated in front of the straits, in front of, not west, in front of. And when you consider that if you left the Straits of Gibraltar, which is what it's referring to, you have a couple choices. You either go right along the coast of Spain, left along the coast of North Africa, or straight out into the endless ocean horizon at your own peril. And one of the reasons why I think it's compelling to argue the Richat is that, considering that Atlantis was said to be busy all day and all night, that's a major metropolitan. Why would people go out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to conduct trading and buy, fruits and vegetables? And again, at your own peril, a couple thousand miles out. So something that people need to understand is that the Richat structure is in front of the Straits of Gibraltar. Again, in people would have followed the coastlines. It's not to say that people wouldn't have ventured straight out, but arguably people follow coastlines as a way of navigation. And if you do that for, over 1,200 miles as the bird flies along the coast of North Africa, it takes you right in front of the Richat structure, which, by the way, we're talking about a distance from modern day New York City to Lincoln, Nebraska. So it's a vast distance. Furthermore, one more argument is that the ocean currents, which we were speaking of earlier, they go south right in front of the Straits of Gibraltar in Africa. So if you were to leave the Straits of Gibraltar, the current would naturally want to take you south right in front of the Richat. So yeah, I feel like there's some very compelling arguments to be made. And again, it's clear that something happened here. The ocean was there at one point in time. It might not be there today, but you can see the satellite image, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. Those striations, like this is water. This is textbook water erosion, fluvial erosion. And it's inexplicable. We don't know how this happened or when, but clearly it was far more recently than the 56 to 66 million years ago of the Trans-Saharan Seaway. So yeah, man, there's a real mystery here in the Sahara. And let me just say one last thing. Even if the Richat is not Atlantis, people need to focus on what the heck happened to the Sahara Desert. That in itself is incredibly important and drives me towards this topic, because it's like there's a real scientific discovery here waiting to be happened, because nobody knows exactly what happened to the Sahara to have obliterated it by the ocean. But, now we live in a time where people can get on the internet and look on Google Earth and find all kinds of interesting things. And like I said, it's here for all who have eyes to see.
Yeah, it's important too to understand our past history, because if it really was meteors from the Taurid meteor stream, that means that when we pass through the Taurid meteor stream, which I think is like now, I think Graham Hancock was saying it's like literally today. Are we in it right now, or is it like in 5 years? So like we got to be on guard.
And the very end of October and early November. So we're in it right now. So it is possible we're going to get nailed by a rock like later tonight or today or in 5 minutes.
I'm wondering, we talked about this on a call at one point, that like, did they do it to themselves? Were they using vibration tech where they were like getting electricity out of the vacuum and they vibrated some meteor to try and stop it and shattered it on accident? And that made it so that the magnetic field of Earth couldn't push it away. And they just got through the field and just obliterated themselves. I don't know, but I want to know, because, if we can overcome the mistakes of the past, maybe we can avoid getting hit again.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I'm looking at my slides and I have something else really gnarly to share, which is significant evidence that the ocean blasted through the Sahara Desert far more recently than what's been described. So as you can see on my slide, I'm highlighting the largest volcano in the Sahara Desert, which is Mount Emi Koussi. It goes up to over 11,200 feet in elevation at the top of the caldera. And as you can see, along the south side of it are the same textbook fluvial erosion. That's water erosion. And I'm gonna show you how right here. So if you look closely, this lava flow was last known to have flown between 12,000 and 15,000 years ago, and on its southerly side, which is what we're looking at. But as you can see, something cut it straight off, which I'm suggesting is water. It's not wind. I mean, look at that. Something happened to cut off a 12,000-year-old lava flow. So there's the source and this is plus or minus 400 years, but between 14,700 and 12,400. So as recently as 11,900 years ago, well within that range of Atlantis, something happened. And this is obtained through radiocarbon dating of the diatoms, which were embedded inside those lava flows. So again, just look at it. I tell people, look and think for yourself. You can see the water erosion blasting through the bedrock around this entire area. And this is a massive volcano, by the way. You can see that something happened to the darker portions of that lava flow. Something cut it right off. It's water. Be real. This is water erosion. It's there look at it and think for yourself. But nowhere does it articulate on the Trans-Saharan Seaway that it went over that portion at that period of time. So again, to re-emphasize my point, which is that something else happened far more recently to the Sahara Desert than what any scientist thought was possible. And it's there for all who have eyes to see. And again, just to put this into perspective, we're talking about so long ago, 65 million years ago. We're going to pretend that the Sahara Desert hasn't changed at all in 60 plus million years, even though we know that it was a lush green tropical paradise just, upwards of 5,000 years ago, or as recently as 5,000 years ago. So, and it's, by the way, I should also mention, it's said to change back and forth from green to desert every 20,000 years. That's according to a study by MIT. So the point here is that if it's continuing going back and forth from green to desert, it seems to me that these, whatever this was that you're looking at here, whatever happened, was far more recently than 65 million years ago. I don't know how else to say it.
You mentioned the Cretaeus, which was a Greek writing by Plato. Plato would follow Socrates around and like write down the stuff he would say, and then Socrates would invite dudes over and they'd go have these crazy conversations, and Plato would just write and transcribe it. And so Cretaeus was some dude, and Timaeus, they were buddies, and they came over to tell Socrates about Atlantis, and that's where a lot of this data comes from Plato recording the conversation. He actually, and you can maybe correct me on this, but Plato, they're telling Plato and Socrates that Solon, one of their ancestors from like maybe 600 years before or 400 years ago from when they were alive. 800 years,
6 generations, less than 200 years.
Okay, so 6 generations before, great grandfather went to Alexandria, Egypt, and talked to the scribes of Egypt, and they told Solon all about this Atlantis. They gave him the measurements of the concentric rings. They told him the shape, the size, and so Solon came back and recorded that with the Greeks. And now it's that data is matching up with this Rakat structure. Is it literally like the same size? 28.2 kilometers or whatever?
The size is vastly different. The Richat structure is significantly, exponentially larger than the described measurements. But let me make a case here. So the size that it's described is like 10 times smaller or something like that. But I would argue that it's too small to have been the site, because if it was busy all day and all night, it was said to have trade with people spoken with languages from all over. This seems to me like a comparable to what we would have as a major metropolitan area. So millions of people, let's say. And the size of Plato's measurements are, it's like 3 miles across, but that includes the water, and most of the measurements would have included water. So I would argue it's too small. But furthermore, this is a 12,000-year-old legend that was passed down through numerous people in God knows how many languages. And my argument is that the measurements would be the least reliable aspect that could be passed down, because loss in translation is a real thing. And so something else to be mentioned is that when Plato recorded this, and again, he got the legend from Solon, he said one of the things that I will endeavor to share, because he had described a few details, and he goes on to say, although I describe the environs of the city to the best of my ability, I will now endeavor to describe the rest of the region to the best of my ability. So he's basically saying that either he can't read or decipher whatever Solon's notes, or that Solon said that he wasn't totally sure. So my point is this, is that certain measure, look, in our world today, we have the imperial system, which is miles, and then the metric system, which basically the rest of the world does. How many people around today can very quickly calculate the difference between metric and miles? Some can, but it's confusing. And so most people cannot, if we're going to be honest. And so to me, I'm like, it's just a lost in translation type thing. It's a 12,000-year-old story. I don't think that we should look at the measurements as if they would reliably be accurate. But what I do think is so specific is to say, but hold on a second, there was concentric circles, 3 of water, 2 of land, an opening at the south, gold, certain things that can be translated far more easier than measurements. That's my argument. But to be honest with you, no, the measurements of the Richat are significantly larger than what is described. So that's another argument that people make against it.
I've got like 25 miles from wall to wall of the outer ring. It's tough to tell exactly. Do you know what the measurement was from Solon or from Plato?
3 miles. So let me
3 miles.
Which, if you zoom into the center circle, it'd be a fraction of that. And so
like, measure
like
distance,
where that red icon is,
that's 5.5. So 3 miles would be like just the inner center.
And that would be the whole thing, including the 3 rings of water. And the rings of water were larger than the land. So I just want to make this argument one more time. It was Atlantis was said to be described of being busy all day and all night, with trade happening with people from speaking languages of all over. Not only do I think that it's not likely to have done that in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, but if we're talking about a metropolitan that's busy all day and all night with languages all over, I'm thinking of London and New York and, you know, Beijing and millions of people. And I'm going to make the argument that there's no way to have that type of populace with the measurements described by Plato. I don't think it's feasible at all.
Yeah.
Whereas the Richat structure would actually, because let me say this real quick. The measurements of the Richat structure is just about the same of the metropolitan areas of modern day Cairo and Paris.
That's just from ring to ring, from outer ring to outer ring?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, see, I look at it, I see like Manhattan. This would be like Manhattan, and this would be New York City, the whole farmland around it. So when they say Atlantis, they're talking about this whole big area with all these waterways, little sail your boats into all these, like, look at this thing. That's someone inhabited that. Like, that was probably a giant castle of some huge community or something. And so this is when I think of Atlantis, it's all of this, the trades. This is the capital. This is like the well-defended center. Apparently the monarchy lived in the middle, and there was like a fresh water spring there. And then I don't know if they had the military in the second ring, and then the outer ring was like the mercantile area. So, I mean, this wouldn't really be a ring. You wouldn't consider the center island a ring because it's just
Let me say something you just reminded me of, which is another unbelievably significant detail, or at least I would say so. So like you said, it was said to have a spring. Well, Atlantis was said to have springs of cold and hot water, both fresh, cold and hot water. Well, the structure of the Richat structure itself has, and I could show you a study, it defines this as a geothermal complex. Well, hot springs are a geothermal anomaly by definition. And I made a video on this, and I shared different slides of, national park and, everything defining these things. So it's like, what an interesting similarity that the Richat structure, as bizarre that it is, and that Atlantis was said to be this special place. Again, cold and hot freshwater springs. And this place is a geothermal complex. In fact, I probably have the slide in here. But yeah, so it's like, I didn't mean to interject right there, but it's
tell me more. What does that mean?
It's just another striking similarity. It's like, come on, that's weird.
It's a geothermal complex, meaning underground. There's hot water. There's like geothermal spring. Yes. Dude. I mean, I'm just going to keep going. This was Atlantis, dude. But I know it's like purported to be.
Look, again, I have to be an open-minded person and say it's possible that it's not. But there's so many similarities that are so astounding that I'm like, this structure makes me feel more compelled that Atlantis did exist because of all these striking similarities. Again, and I'm not trying to, I can't prove this, right? Like, so I have to say, like, I don't know, maybe it's not, but for God's sake, it is by far the most likely location, and it's worthy of scientific study. And that's what I'm encouraging here, is that it should be looked into. There has never been an archaeological dig at the Richat structure. It is forbidden by the Mauritanian government. This site has only been studied because decades ago, they were trying to decipher if it was created by a cosmic impact. And they found there's no evidence of that. But, there's a lot of mystery here waiting to be found.
So let's assume people lived here. I'm not going to say this was Atlantis, but look, that's not like, oops, a dog did that. Like, this looks either carved out and irrigated, or there's some human activity right there. That's not a normal thing you see on Earth. Let's assume, for the sake of this conversation, that humans lived here at some point. Did they I think they dug this. They carved this waterway opening into the greater channel of this, which was a huge, probably, and they found this in either, I don't know, but do you think that they got down here and like dug this out, these rings, like under, or were these natural river? Was this all natural?
I honestly, I just don't know. Maybe we did construct it. Maybe we geoengineered it. I honestly couldn't tell you. I just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe, because here's the thing, Ian, is like, this site is like nothing else seen anywhere else on Earth. People should go look at other examples around the world of collapsed domes, and it just doesn't look like this. There's a similarity of like a round portion with a depression, but with the concentric circles. And it was described that way by Plato, which is that it was made of concentric circles, almost done with a lathe. A lathe is what you put the pin in, you circle around. It's like what architects use. And in other words, to say that it's, these circles were unbelievably circular in nature. What else are you gonna put it? So what are the odds that of all places on Earth that match all these similarities that you would also have? Let me add my screen again. Hold on here.
I gotta add it to the stage. Oh, wait,
okay. Let me know when you're ready, because I'm gonna share just another striking similarity that is so insane. So here we go. Besides the fact that there is a map now Herodotus never made a map, but the known world, according to him, as of 430 BC, this is what it looked like. And somewhere along the line, and I don't know who, and I'm not saying that this is a credible map because no one knows who did it, but it says Atlantis in the same location of the northwestern Sahara in the same general area of the Richat structure. This is not my best case in point, because a lot of people say it's not known that Herodotus ever made a map. He did detail in high detail write about the layouts of the earth, But whoever made this and whoever put Atlantis there, I just don't know. But let me tell you something that's far more compelling, which is that the Romans' first geographer was a person named Pomponius Mela some 2,000 years ago. And the Romans are known for having documented everything in epic detail. Well, I don't know how. I've never seen or heard of this before until about a year ago when I was making a video on this. But so if you look at the map, it's orientated east. But if you flip it to a north-south facing direction, what do you see in the northwest corner of the Western Sahara in the same general location of the Rishat? Atlanti or Atlantier, however, I don't know how you pronounce it, but what is that supposed to mean? Like, it's like the same thing. I'm not saying it was aliens, but it's aliens. Well, I'm not saying it's Atlantis, but it's Atlantis. Like, honestly, in the same geographical location, and I don't know, I don't have any answer to why Pomponius Mela articulated with a word that looks Latin for, okay, so the word Atlantier in Latin means Atlas. So, but if you look closely, I would say he's not articulating the Atlas Mountains. But either way, the people of Atlas could be from that. It's just another similarity of like the name Atlas and the same exact location of the Rishat and all these striking similarities. I mean, it's pretty intense. And I was going to say this slide here reminds me of, because Atlantis was said to be an empire made up of 10 kingdoms. So I would argue that the Rishat structure was the capital, which is the place that was described as being made up of concentric circles, and that the other 9 kingdoms may have been sunken islands in the Atlantic or elsewhere. I'm simply focusing on the capital city.
And I know the Greeks, the ancient Athenians warred with Atlantis. At least this is part of the story too. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they had a lot of conflict. They were like 2 of the larger, at least this is according to the Greeks. So maybe they're bullshitting, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Greeks after the Cataclysm took advantage of it and wiped out all memory of Atlantis. And they were like, we're not playing this game. You are enemies for 5,000 years. And now you're nothing. And no one will remember your name.
And they hated them because that's the thing. Look what people do when they hate them. Like people will conquer and obliterate and destroy everything. We've seen this throughout, human history. Humans can be quite cruel. So yeah, why not erase them off the map? And then fast forward thousands and thousands of years later. Let me stop sharing here. Thousands and thousands of years later, Earth does what it does. The sand comes in, it turns into a hot desert and everything else. So people have to wrap their heads around. Let me make this point too, because a lot of people will say, if this was Atlantis, where are the structures? Well, there's 2 things to say. First of all, there was LiDAR scanning from space that showed that there's structures that go back there as far back as, or foundations of structures that go back at least 8,000 years. But if Atlantis had been bulldozed by the ocean 11,600 years ago, something else I didn't include in these slides is that there is a seafloor slide off the Western Sahara, right in front of the Rishat, that is like 155 or 150 miles wide from east to west, like 120 miles north and south. It's huge. It's it's 2 miles deep, and the sediment is layered, and it's layered sediment that's more than a mile thick, which to me suggests that whatever that force of water was that bulldozed through the Sahara, it would have taken all that sediment, and the remnants of Atlantis would be at the bottom of the ocean within that sediment, maybe a mile deep under, it'd be a hell of a thing to go finding it. But since it was made up of gold and gold does not rust, that's the place to look. If this was the long lost location of Atlantis, its remnants are off the Western Sahara, which nobody's looking out there. It plummets like 2 miles deep within like 100 miles off the coast. It's crazy. Like it's wild. But I can show you a study. It's called the Mauritanian seafloor slide. And get this. Guess what the date is on it? Approximately 11,000 years ago.
Or 11,000 BC. Is that what it is? Whatever. It was
11,000 years ago. So Atlantis would have been 11,600. But you got to keep in mind, that's like, there's a margin of error. 11,000 might mean 11,600. It might mean 10,000. It might mean 12,000. It's an approximation effect on the study. It literally has the, what do you call it? That symbol for
that tilde? Yeah. Also, I think a lot about wood. Like a lot of these ancient cultures built with wood, and that stuff rots away. Like the pyramids, they weren't just pyramids. There was wood all around that, probably like wooden stairways and giant wooden platforms, and people could go up there and eat and drink their tea and shit. I can only begin to imagine all the wooden structures that were part of these ancient structures that are just completely vaporized.
Yeah. Dust. It's now dust, right? Gone forever. So that's the thing that people have to realize. Oh, and here's the other point I was going to make. I saw some study that was talking about that, hey, if all humans disappeared on Earth today, what would be left and what would be the last thing to survive? Now, it didn't mention anything about the pyramids, and the truth is that the pyramids would be the last thing. That Great Pyramid is going to be around for millions of years of erosion, but let's just backburn that for a hot second. It said that the Hoover Dam, everyone's familiar with the Hoover Dam, I imagine, between Las Vegas and Arizona, Lake Mead. They say that in approximately 10,000 years, that cement will curate and essentially just dissolve. Like over time, will just start crumbling down. But it'll last for approximately another 10,000 years. So if Atlantis was 11,600 years, we're talking about another 1,500 years older than what the last surviving thing on Earth would be. Now, it's bullshit because the pyramids will survive. Like we're talking 755 feet long at their bases, and it's just block after block after block. Even if it erodes like block by block, it's going to take millions of years for that thing to go away. That's going to be a blob of a hill of rocks for a very long time. But that's the point to make here is that like if most things will be gone within just a few thousand years, like even stainless steel will rust. Like if you took some stainless steel tooling, I've seen stainless steel rust. If you get a chip in it and you don't take care of it, it will rust. I've seen it with my own eyes. Like stainless steel, if you have some nice silverware, it's not going to rust. You just take good care of it. But stainless steel tools will eventually erode away. And so if you were to throw that stuff out in the dirt for thousands of years, and then if you think about the constant endless cycles of heating and cooling between the seasons, and even in one winter, heat and thaw, especially in Arizona, we'll freeze out here, but also in the middle of winter, you'll be warm again. So heat and thawing causes the soil to retract and the earth to retract. And so it's going to constantly be, weathering whatever that tooling would be. Because this is another thing people say is like, where's the metal tooling and all that? It's just gone. Like, we're talking about nearly 12,000 years. And you got to think about how many things disappear within 100 years. Like if you were to go to a junkyard, and I stole this from Joe Rogan, he was talking about it years ago. But if you look at like an old car from like World War II, it's like rusting from inside out. You can see through the doors. There's like the springs left of the seats are the only thing that's left. Like the springs, like it's literally eroding right in front of your very eyes. And that's like 70 and 80 years ago. Look at the Titanic. It's not the best example because it's under the ocean, and that's a factor in it diminishing, but it's more than 50% gone, and it's been barely over 100 years. So when we're talking about timeframes of 12,000 years, honestly, we all think we can comprehend 1,000 years here, 1,000 years there, but it kind of goes beyond the human mind because it's like you got to think about how many seasons over and over and over and over again throughout that time that would be constantly eroding things down and wearing it into oblivion.
Yeah, and
forever.
Compounding effects. Like time is not real. Time is a concept, the human concept to explain motion. It's just a way for us to coordinate motion. But all that reality is motion. It's things moving. The Earth is turning. It's moving around the sun, and we're like, let's try and quantify it. But that doesn't mean that friction can't increase the rate of erosion. So super heat, super fast things moving fast, high winds. Sand is very abrasive. The rubbing of sand can cause immense amounts of friction, which can give the illusion of time passing because things are moving quicker. It's a faster motion. So this idea of time is very, it's very three-dimensional, and I like it, but we don't need to get stuck on it. We got to think of like the Grand Canyon. Something people said that took like tens of millions of years just because if that was happening at normal river. But if that was a giant cataclysmic flood ripping out the bottom of the waterbed as it's tearing miles of ocean and rocks and boulders and ice over top, you could tear the shit out of that. And if you look at the base of riverbeds, really fast flowing, when sediment cracks, you'll see like weird geostatic formations that look like big rocks in the desert, in our desert, like at the base of the water. Like it'll just pick up hunks and like carry off huge chunks of sediment at once.
I was making a post on this a few months ago involving rivers because like because I live in Phoenix. So depending where I'm flying out to, I've flown over the Grand Canyon many times. And every time I fly over it, I'm like, it really does look like catastrophic flooding. And so I looked into this, and the more revised estimate is like, okay, it's probably 5.5 to 6-7 million years old at the most. And I'm like, so I started looking up the biggest and oldest rivers on Earth, and like the Nile River, for example, is like 30 million years. The Mississippi is like 70 million years. The Yangtze River in China is like 15, 20 million. I might be off on that one. But either way, they're all significantly older than the Grand Canyon. And I'm looking at like satellite imagery and everything. Like, why do none of these other rivers carve out a canyon? I'm just making a point. I'm not saying all the land is the same and there's elevational differences that make a factor here. I'm simply saying that it just seems to me a little bit weird for them to say the Grand Canyon, it's not possible it was carved through cataclysmic flooding, but we know that the North American ice shelf ended rapidly at the end of the last ice age 12,800 years ago. So it's like, I think that was caused an event in a matter of weeks, probably. I can't prove it to anyone listening. This is fun conjecture. It's Friday and we're having a podcast. Because I say these things with appreciation that there'll be academics and professors that listen to these shows and it'll be highly critical. But it's like, I can't look and think for yourself. Like I said, like I always say. All right, so you're up to the left, no, straight in. All right, so that's where the Missoula floodplain was.
Right here. So this is like when the cataclysm purportedly happened. I mean, these floodwaters literally flattened the land. That's why we have these great plains of flatness. And it also took out all the megafauna, all the elephants and giraffes that lived in North America got smeared into paste, essentially.
Yeah.
And then where's the Grand Canyon? Down here. Am I looking at it? I can't. I don't know if I can spot it from
zoom. Zoom in to the left, more to the west. It's always tricky to find. More to the
guide
more
me
to the left, or zoom
left.
Out. Go.
Maybe you can take
up and
over.
to the left. Right. I wish I could point. I wish I could show you. I can see it now. All right, to
but
the left where you're at. Go straight. Go hard left or west. This is fun.
Hard west. That's a video game.
Down to the south.
Right here.
To the left. Right there.
This thing. This is the Grand Canyon.
No, that's Lake Mead. So it's going to be up to the right. Hold on.
Yeah, if you want to take over a Google thing and guide the,
you're right there. You're right
into it.
Oh, I'm lost now, but it's right.
I'm a newbie.
Me too. It's different when you're, because that right
I know,
there is Lake
dude. Imagine what the audience is going through. By the way, guys, throw in super chats. We got a bunch of them. I'm going to be reading. Pretty soon.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me look up to see what people are saying here. What's up? In fact, I'm going to say hello while we're live.
People loving this shit. But
help us find the Grand Canyon.
I wasn't going to try and prove anything.
What's that? Sorry.
I wasn't going to try and prove anything by showing it. I was just considering that this was part of the floodwaters coming down over North America, and I guess the Grand Canyon was part of that. I mean, Randall Carlson's done a lot of work on the impacts and how like rocks and ice got thrown, like 1,700 miles or whatever through and hit the ground down here. There's like all these like,
oh yeah, the Carolina Bays. Now here's the thing, I'm a little bit more skeptical on that than I used to be. I've seen some arguments against it, which were interesting. And one of the things that throws me off about it is that, so there's thousands of those bays, but you know what the absolute deepest one out of them all is?
No.
10 feet.
Okay.
And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking that it should be a little deeper than that. Now, I don't know what I'm talking about, but there was some arguments, and it sounds so silly, but it may be wind related. I'm not certain. I've gone back and forth on that stuff a little bit. There's a lot of pushback on whether they were, but I don't know. Maybe they were. I don't know. I like to share all sides because I've been attacked so many times that I realize that you have to share. You don't have to, but it's good to share, the pros and cons to anything. Just like when I talk about the wrist shot, instead of me going about it and saying, oh, it's this for this reason, that reason, I've already seen, I'll get 1,000 comments with people saying, oh, he omitted this and he omitted that. So I always take pride on sharing what the other side of the argument is saying, because in my mind, this is all in fun. Like these topics, this is the most fun stuff to talk about. We're not debating abortion here. Debating, Atlantis is a really fun thing. And by the way, I was looking at the comments, and we got David Stig Hansen in the chat. He went to the wrist shot twice. This guy is amazing. Say hi. Hi, David.
David Stig Hansen. Stig Hansen. Yo, yes. Talk about it, brother. What was that like? Maybe we have David on the show. I want to hear your
I want to do one with him on Rumble. I'm like, he'd be cool to talk to about this stuff. I've met him multiple times in person, by the way. He's a great guy. And he's really doing some hardcore digging. There he is.
Did a long video aligning with that. I'm not sure what that. Maybe you're talking about.
He's referring to the Carolina Bays. Yeah, this she has a YouTube channel called Curious Being, or Being Curious, Curious Being, and she basically made a compelling argument that it's not the Carolina Bays are not related to a cosmic impact. And to be honest, I kind of agree with her. If you look at all the details, they might not, but I can't say that with certainty. I don't. Who knows?
Yeah, it's not worth hanging a hat on. This is the Grand Canyon, by the way, for reference, southwest of Lake Mead.
There we are. All right, yeah. See, we were there. We should have.
So maybe
there it is.
I mean, when I think of the flood, I think of it coming down along and kind of like riding the side of the Rockies. But maybe did it all flow through the Rockies too? I mean, I've been to Joshua Tree, and you see those weird ass formations in the desert. They just look left over from like the basin of a giant fucking flood.
Do you want to see something really crazy?
Yeah.
Type in Boulder City, New Mexico. I think it's Boulder or City of Boulders. I might butcher
Nevada.
The name. In fact,
City of Boulders. Oh, okay.
Let me see if I can find it. It's definitely New Mexico.
Boulder City.
I might be messing up the name. My friend Nikki from Nikki Anna Jones channel is the one that taught or showed me these things. Hold on, I'm trying to find right now. I'm scavenging.
Shout out to Nikki Anna Jones.
Yeah, she's so cool. She digs all kinds of wild things up. All right, so it's not called Boulder City. It's damn it.
That sounds like something from Fallout.
New Mexico Boulder Field. Let me try that.
It's great. If you guys like this content, like the video, subscribe, follow Jimmy too at Bright Insight. We could be doing more of these. I mean, we just started on. We just talked about Atlantis and the flood. I want to talk about the pyramids of Egypt. I want to talk about Baalbeck as well. You were just in Lebanon, and I know you got images from it. But we're not going too long today. But you want to bring?
Well, we got to do this again. By the way, I just found it's called City of Rocks. My bad, City of Rocks. And if you look at it from space, dude, this thing is wild. So I just went to Lebanon. Dude, we should do this again. Do you want to come on? Because I started a show on Rumble. Do you want to come on mine? We talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
There's just so much more to chat about. I went to Lebanon, which was wild.
Dude, the size of those rocks in Lebanon. This is the City of Rocks, by the way. City of Rocks.
All right, so there's a certain part of it which, if you look at it from space, it is the most gnarly geological feature you've ever seen. Hold on.
Look at all these ancient rivers, or whatever they were, just carved out by water. All this stuff.
Yeah, City of Rocks. Watch this. Watch this.
It's so wild.
City of Rocks State Park. Do it on satellite imagery. Or you got to see this. Look at it from satellite.
I think that's where I'm at.
I could bring it up on mine if you want.
Satellite.
Or do you?
This is City of Rocks State Park satellite. Yeah, bring it up on yours. You're the driver.
Okay, here we go.
Man, not much thrills me more than seeing ancient riverbeds.
So these are all
that I didn't know they existed.
Right? So let me scroll out. So just show people where we're at or what. So watch this. This one little region right here. And these are all massive boulders. And it's just, again, there's nothing else around it, but something happened here. Like,
oh, that's cool.
And now watch this. Let me just keep showing you. And then I want to show you what it looks like from the ground. And you'll be like, what? So it's these.
Oh, did they get carried down and deposited there from the riverbed?
I think they're part of the bedrock. Because look at this. There's something weird about this. That's crap. Let's see here. They go back.
Shout out to satellites, by the way, for which we were even able to spot the Ricat structure. They didn't even know it existed until like 1991 or something. Maybe later.
Yeah, the astronauts on Gemini 4 or whatever are the first ones to ever pick up on it. City of Rocks State Park. Hold on. I wanted to find. Am I still sharing the screen?
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Okay, I want to just find a couple more images just to show people how yeah, here, this is what I'm talking about.
They're standing. That is so weird. So you think the bedrock just got torn asunder and these things are left over, just sticking out of the earth?
I don't know, but look at this.
Are you familiar what they're made of? Are these granite?
It looks like granite. I can't say with absolute certainty, but it looks like granite.
Is granite the hardest?
One.
Is it the hardest rock, granite?
It's among them. Diorite's harder. So diamonds are the 10. Granite is like a 9 on the Mohs scale. It's incredibly hard. There are some that are harder than it, like diorite, but like in context, like limestone's like a 3 or a 4 on the Mohs scale. So with like out of 10, 10 being the hardest, diamond is a 10, granite's a 7, but there's not a lot in between. Yeah, so look at these. Hold on. And I'll get off this city of boulders, but I'm like, this place is just so weird. And it's like nothing else you'll see anywhere else. It's like, what's this about? And see, you can compare it to the size of a camper. It's like a city of boulders. I want to go there.
That's so weird that they're all in the same place.
Yeah. And it's like, what caused this? What made this whole site?
I wonder if it was like this. If it was a giant rock that got torn into pieces, like through erosion, rapid erosion, but parts of it are still sticking up. Like there's this thing at the bottom of a riverbed where there's sediment and like it'll be flat and then a piece of it will break off and then a big chunk, like a jagged chunk will come out, but part of it will still be sticking straight up. And so you'll have pieces of it still sticking straight up where it'll break off around it as the water rushes by and you're left over with these like jagged stilts of sediment. And I wonder if rock does the same thing because they're like smooth rocks. They're like smooth through erosion over time. It looks like, well, time, what is time? Through erosion over motion. So maybe it was fast moving water that pulled pieces apart. And
that's the thing. That's what it looks like. Cause that's how we got on that topic in the first place. And it looks to me that water had bulldozed through there in some capacity. I don't know. I've never seen anything that looks quite like that though.
We got a bunch of super chats. I want to pull some of them up, and we'll go deeper on Lebanon and Baalbeck on your channel on Rumble when we go on.
Right on.
Oh, this is I'm Not Your Buddy guy. Love this guy. Great, thoughtful, and educational.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, man, I agree. Jimmy's the man. Agamemnon Fireman. Jimmy, Ian, you guys effing rock. I love both your guys' work. Jimmy, question. Do you know if Graham and Randall are still okay with each other? That's Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, I believe.
Who's asking?
Agamemnon Fireman. Are they still okay with each other?
I don't know.
You don't have to answer any questions the way you don't want to answer them.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I can't speak for them. I don't know. I keep it real, but yeah, I shouldn't speak on that.
Did they have a professional?
Things going on there that who knows. I can't comment.
Did they have like a public falling out? Because I saw them on Rogan a few times, and I haven't really followed up with what they've been doing together. But just public stuff.
I shouldn't comment. I think Randall is going down a path of looking into some things that others might not be aligned with, and so there's something maybe like that. But as far as whether they're friends or not, I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, it's better to keep personal stuff or private stuff private, in my opinion. But those guys, I think, also.
I don't know Randall. I know I've met Graham a few times. I've never actually interacted with Randall outside of like a video conference that several other people were on. But that was the extent of it.
Yeah, I want to go deep with Randall.
He is a lot of knowledge, and he's one of the people that brought so much to light involving this erosion across North America. The flooding, at the end of the last ice age. So he's had some amazing work that's influenced me greatly.
Yeah.
He's not a fan of the wrist-shot structure, though. I will say that. In fact, he's on a campaign right now to debunk it. He's been like talking about it every chance he gets. He is not a fan, which I find
good.
Interesting.
I guess that's good. That would be the three of us getting to the bottom of this. I mean, that'd
be a fun debate.
Yeah, it would be. Dick Dickerson, not Comet, Micronova, and Earth stopped for a day. And I guess you're talking about what shattered over North America. You're saying it was not a comet. It was
that's all right. So one of the big theories is that it involves a pole shift, that the sun did a micronova and caused the geomagnetic poles to flip here. And this is something I'm looking into greatly. I think that one of the things that we're looking at, I think comets have hit us, but I think it's beyond that. I think there was even more that happened on Earth. I think there was a couple events that happened. Something happened 12,800 years ago, and another event happened 11,600 years ago. And I think that it could be all the above, and that Earth is far more volatile and dangerous than anyone wants to really believe. And I've been looking into the sun cycle thing, and this is like it really needs to be looked at more. The poles have flipped hundreds of times. They know this science. They're overdue to flip again. And if you look at certain historical and religious texts, I'm making a video on this, and it's like, I think that. So here's the thing: the Earth, when the geomagnetic poles flip, the Earth's shields diminish greatly. And everything I'm saying here is science. This isn't like conspiracy part. And when the shields go down, we will be more susceptible to cosmic impact. So the theory is that maybe that had happened 12,000 years ago. The shields went down, diminished during that period of when the Earth stopped, essentially stopped for a day and flipped back. And then somewhere in that realm of time, rocks hit us. And so it was kind of like a double whammy.
Interesting. And that's the shield is the Earth's magnetic field?
Yeah. And that's the thing. So it's already diminishing now. The poles are changing at 70 miles a year when it was like moving at like 20 miles a year just like a decade and a half ago. It's accelerating and we're overdue. This is like one of those things, man. I'm telling you, this is the rabbit hole is sun cycles. And even Elon Musk was talking about this involving ice ages. I think the Earth's tilt influences ice ages more than anything.
Yeah, I was reading that we're still in an ice age. We're coming out of it, and it's just because all that ice got melted 12,000 years ago that people didn't really realize that we're still in the ice age. But it's at Utah University, I think I was reading.
Yeah, so it's true. We're literally in an ice age right now.
So it's natural that we're heating.
It's going to get cold again before it might continue to warm, but the data shows that it's going to cool down again. And what's interesting is back when President Trump was president, he spoke about this. He was in Sacramento during those wildfires going on. This is like 2020 as well. He was last year in office, and he was being sharpshooted by some climate guy, and he kind of like laughs and says, "It's going to get cool first, though, won't it?" Something to that effect. And I think he knows. I think Elon Musk knows. I think the big secret is that because we can't live when it's cold, we can survive when it's warm. We can do that. We can grow food. We can't grow crops when it's freezing. And the data shows that the Earth is cold more often than it's hot. I can show you mainstream science, data that shows exactly this. Like, for example, in the last 450,000 years, there's been 5 known interglacial periods. Interglacial periods are periods where it warms, we usually have lots of glaciers, but they recede. But there's been 5 of these periods in just the last less than 500,000 years alone. But we're 3 million years into an ice age. So the data is showing, honestly, that it's like there are these periods where things do warm and then it freezes for periods that far exceed the length of time than the warming periods. I have this on a folder somewhere, but everything I'm sharing right now is mainstream scientific stuff. Like I'm like, in my head, I'm wondering, how is this not the number one topic? But there's an agenda, there's a narrative, there's politics behind this climate stuff. They want to tax us. They want to take away our freedoms. They want to blame everything on humans. And I'm not saying we're not trashing this planet. I'm not saying that at all. But there are some big things happening that I think that they rather have the masses not really know. But that's conspiracy. And I am a conspiracy theorist. I've been wrong before.
The idea of a micronova shutting down or disrupting the Earth's magnetic field is kind of interesting. It's slightly terrifying because, I wonder if we're in the torrid meteor stream again, and it's the first time that we're back in the meteor stream since we were during the age of Atlantis 12,800 years ago. Is that every 12,800 years we pass through it or something?
We pass through it every year, but there has to be portions. So the meteor stream is I don't know how many millions of miles across. But there's naturally going to be parts of it that are going to have few rocks and asteroids that are few and far between, and other parts that are going to be far more dirtier. So when Earth is passing through the torrid meteor stream twice a year, every year, forever, at some point, we're going to go through a part of it that's far more dense, and we're going to get nailed.
Okay. And maybe I wonder if the density of asteroid is what caused the sun to micronova, which caused the disruption of the field. It's like a magnetic, because those rocks have iron in them, I would imagine. They're magnetic too. And maybe it's like if you have 2 big magnets near each other, like the sun and the Earth, and then you introduce another third magnet to the equation, you're going to cause some sort of disruption.
Yeah,
potentially.
I'm open to that. I'm open to, I even heard Elon Musk talking about how the collision of galaxies would have thrown us through a loop. Like if you look at the planets in our solar system, almost all of them are off. Like they're off their tilt. Like, for example, Earth is on a 23.5 degree tilt, and it's kind of like no one knows why. Uranus, or is it Neptune, is like totally flipped, and they're all off their even keel, so to speak, and it's not really known why. And so it might have to do with when you get certain distance from other galaxies that might have far more gravity, whatever, than us, it like flips us.
Yeah, I was thinking
physically.
The formation of our solar system 4 billion years ago. Was that what it was? 4 billion years ago.
They say that they don't. Whatever.
I'm trying to figure out what caused it. Either a binary star collision, which then caused this ejection of matter from the sun, and then it spattered out and caused it to cool down into all this gas and planetoids. We had like 28 planetoids all ramming into each other and exploding and passing through like the planet Theia, going through the Earth and coming out on the other end to cool down into the moon. And like, was it a binary star collision, or was it like what's called a Z pinch, where the sun itself just got so there's like such a buildup that it cracked out and just like splattered matter. But it's like either, in my opinion, it's either going to be a binary star collision or a Z pinch phenomenon. But and like the sun, the Saturn is has like a heat signature, like a star. It's got it's got that hexagon on its northern. Its North Pole is a giant hexagon.
It's either the North Pole or South Pole. I can't remember.
It's the North. Well, let me pull it up.
It's crazy. Pull it up. Like, it's one of the most craziest things in the solar system, and most people have never even heard about it before.
It is so. I don't know why I had not heard of it. This is Saturn from the top. This is crazy.
Is it the North Pole or South Pole? I can't remember.
I think it's the North. Saturn hexagon. Cassini's view of Saturn's famous it's the North Pole. This was
okay. Good to know. Good to know.
Saturn. Oh, let me double check. Saturn North Pole.
Or just show here. I'll look it up while you show pictures. Okay. Let's tag team this bad boy.
Yeah, dude, we got this from the top. This is really wild. Yo, what? Saturn has a giant hexagon on top of it. Okay, I believe it because I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah, it's the North Pole for sure. Dude, look at that thing. Like, what? How is that natural? Like, what's going on here?
Have you followed the Thunderbolts project? They talk a lot about the electric universe. I think a lot of this is magnetism. Gravity itself maybe is a resonating frequency of magnetism or something.
I'm far more open-minded to that now because, like, think about it. If we're made up of atoms, and atoms are this mysterious, because we don't fully understand them, obviously, and they're binded together through an electrical force. So no atoms are touching. They're actually separated by vast distances in comparison to how big they are, but they're held together by a mysterious electrical force. Mysterious, like they don't know how, they're just constantly rejuvenated and where this electrical force comes from. But that by definition proves, I would say, that we are of an electric universe. Like, it is electricity is going through everything, I guess.
Or radiation. Yeah, like it's something is causing things to be electrified, whatever it is. I don't know. Like the cosmic microwave background radiation is pretty fascinating. You've got a good look at that stuff. It's
been a while since I've looked into that. I have to go and refresh. I think outer space is one of the most fascinating topics for me. Like, it really gets the mind going on what's possible and where we all came from.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's kind of like a macrocosm. As above, so below. I always think like the universe is kind of an explanation, kind of a look outward of what we can see inward when we go. But it's like this radiation field left over after the Big Bang. It's radiation. It's not necessarily electricity, but it's radiation that's like moving through hot spots in the galaxy, like star systems and stuff. It's coagulating, but something's causing this electrical phenomenon, whether it's like subatomic pulsation, vibration, flux. There's so many words, and it just gets smaller, like below the subatomic spin that's causing matter to form up like it's forming. What's causing the spin? I
don't know.
I start to say God, but then it's like a whole other conversation.
People get mad.
Check this out from Stephen Kalin. Mr. C and Mr. C. That would be us. Zapruder film shows lady in pink lean over, place her purse under JFK's chin, and then back to the left. I know that you both can JFK with the best of them, but try to allow yourself to see it. Is the lady in pink Jackie Kennedy?
That's surely.
She leans
Is this
over
along the lines of I wonder what he means, because I've heard of people suggesting that it was the driver that shot him, which to me sounds crazy. I'm like, I think, look, And what Lee Harvey Oswald did not act alone on that thing. And the very fact that it's nearly 60 years later, or about to be, it'll be 60 years this month, and they still have not declassified all of the documents related to that investigation. That right there is a literal conspiracy to withhold information from the masses. And whatever the reason is for doing it, it ain't good. There's more than one gunman. And by the way, Lee Harvey Oswald, one of the first words out of his mouth was, "I'm a patsy." This is before conspiracies had started generating about it. It's not like he was watching the 24-hour news cycle and like trying to come up with some like, crazy idea. That didn't even exist back then. He's alone in a cell, and the second they bring him on a little perp walk and some cameras in front of him, he said, "I'm a patsy. I'm a patsy."
Yeah. I heard that he'd loaned his rifle to somebody that was in like the communist movement. And then the day of the shooting, his rifle was found on a different floor than he was. He was eating lunch on a different floor. And like, dude, if you just went through that and had done what they say he did, I don't think you just be chilling, eating your lunch like 2 floors away. And right. Like, what? I'm not saying he didn't pull the trigger. Maybe he didn't even pull any trigger. I don't know. But like, for him to walk out and be like, "I'm a patsy," immediately. Like, he didn't seem proud of what had happened at all. He wasn't like,
no. There's way more to that story. I don't know. Yeah, it seems like there was some governmental influence there.
We could do a whole episode on it.
Yeah,
loving the content. This is GOS 85. Loving the content. Ian, history, mythology, geology, all very interesting. Yes.
What up?
I love making sense out of myth. I mean, you do it with religious texts, but also with geology. I've been since a kid. I played this video game where we were in Atlantis, like when I was like 12, and it was like, what if that was real? What if that place was real?
Right.
And then I started to find out that it was, or it seems to.
I think it existed. There's legends across, the world and religious texts that talk about, a cataclysm that happened, and whether Atlantis was a place or not, I think it may have been a period of time or a global civilization, whatever it was. I think humans were doing incredible things, and something really bad happened to make it all go away. And it's the same reason we have no clue how the pyramids were built. It's the reason why there's so many mysteries involving our past that just don't make up. And as other people like Graham Hancock and others have put it, we're a species with amnesia, that there's a missing chapter in our history. It's gone. And it's, to me, one of the most fun topics.
Philip Fisher agrees that it's definitely Atlantis.
I know. Come on, the wrist shot. I can't. Let me just say this. I've already been clear. I'm open-minded. Maybe it's not it. Maybe Atlantis never existed. But it drives me crazy when people say it's not it. I'm like, it is premature and foolish to rule out the Reshot structure. It's obviously the most likely location. But even if you have significant doubts on it, it is premature to say it could not have been. You don't know that. Nobody knows that.
That's how I feel about atheism. For someone to say there's no God, I'm like, well, that's as big of a statement as saying there is a God. So like,
yeah.
Are you like agnosticism? At least there's really no way to tell unless you have some data.
Right.
This Atlantis is found, which I kind of agree with. Does Jimmy care to comment on what I've found? Poseidon with his trident, other statues and buildings.
This is on the bottom of the ocean. Honestly, when it comes to Google satellite, like views of the bottom of the ocean, I don't know how reliable they truly are. Because like that distance that you're showing right there, how many miles is that, or kilometers, or hundreds of feet, or what is that? What's that distance? So, honestly, I'm open-minded, and where I stand is that if Jimmy was king of the universe or had unlimited funds, I would say they need to go down there with submersibles or at least drones and film, get some lights on there with some GoPros, and I want to see what that looks like with my own eyes. So I think that all the bottom of the ocean needs to be explored. I'm very open-minded, and I think that any place that people file or have a calling to look into should be looked into. I think we all are playing a part in uncovering mysteries of our past, and if nothing else, by bringing awareness and conversations to the public about any potential site could grow into something really important someday. So I'm open-minded, my friend. I just don't know exactly where that's at. I've seen pictures of this shared with me, or it may have been you yourself. But when I see anything under the ocean, on as you show with this picture here, which is your thumbnail, or your biopic, I don't know. Like I don't know how accurate that stuff really is, if that makes sense.
We got to go deeper. We need better cameras and more LiDAR. I agree with you. Google's doing a real service. People can complain however they want about Alphabet and its corporate collusion and things like that, but what a service technologically to humanity so far.
Yeah.
I would like to start excavating the sand out of Africa. You mentioned that, like just set up drones that are constantly taking buckets of it back into the ocean, back and forth all day. We'll have to get
I'm
through
on
the
board.
governments. David Stig Hansen, Jimmy knows I went there 2 times. Without Jimmy's 2018 Herodotus vid, I would never have gone. Jimmy changed my life.
I love
What was
you,
a Herodotus vid?
It's the one talking about, so I had made 3 videos on it within consecutive months back in 2018, and they went viral, and it was the 3rd video that got the most views, and it was showing that alleged map by Herodotus that shows Atlantis in the same geographical location as the Rishon structure. I was basically like, this is basically an X marks the freaking spot. But people dismiss that too. Like, well, there's no evidence. Herodotus, I always say it wrong. I don't care. Tomato. There's no evidence he ever made a map. Okay, well, it doesn't mean that he didn't, and it doesn't explain why it says Atlantis in that same location. And they'll just say, "Oh, it's the people the Atlas Mountains, the Berber people," and da da da. I'm like, all named after the same thing. So I don't know. But David is the man. Like, again, having gone there twice by himself, that's no little
that
thing.
Is the eye of the Sahara, the Rikat structure.
Yep.
David Stig Hansen on the ground, the tip of the spear. Keep it up, David. Maybe we can all go together someday.
Yeah,
because that is on my bucket list. I'm not your buddy guy. Says, do you think the Great Pyramid of Egypt could have utilized vibrations to produce electricity? Yes.
Probably a power plant. What do you think?
I think that they capped it with gold on top, and that they run these telluric currents, I think, hypothetically through underneath. Yeah, I think. And when you look at a lot of these like vents and chamber, the vents inside, I mean, those look like water, like they could have run water through those things.
I think even the very nature of the so-called Grand Gallery, like when you walk in it today, there's like these plank of steps so you can walk up it without sliding down. But you got to look at photos that were like the first photos taken inside the Great Pyramid before those planks were set up. That whole thing is it's like a slide. In my mind, you'd almost think that water came down it. I think water was involved with the Great Pyramid. I think it was functional. I think it's a technology. My best guess is that it generated electricity. Maybe not, but it did something. Power plant of some kind.
There could have been iron pipes that rusted away on the outside. They could have used wooden chambers to run water through that have all rotted away too. But
I would love to see what it looks like now. This place got rat fucked. You know what I mean? Like that place, like people have been tearing that thing apart for so many years that like whatever we see today ain't what it once was.
Man, I want to go. Brandon, Ian, whatever you do not stop being you. One of my favorite people on the internet. Love all your guests. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Brandon.
That's a good comment.
Yes.
That's a good comment.
I will be myself, and I will say fuck when I want to say fuck.
Yeah.
Even if I get demonetized, it's worth it.
I was trying to be careful with you. I was like, it's not my podcast.
I think what I found with the whole, like, don't use bad words on the internet kind of like moderation thing. And I was a moderator for a decade. So I really understand that for like 7 years with Minds is like, if you call someone a fuck, it's way worse than being like, oh, this is fucking awesome. Like no one really cares if you use it as an exclamation. It's when you insult people with dirty words. That's like, it's the insulting that's the problem, not the words themselves. So that's how I've kind of looked at it.
Yeah.
Stuart Walker, only need to look at the Sphinx in Egypt for evidence of ancient flooding. I mean, we were just talking about this a few days ago, the water erosion on the side of the Sphinx.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is like newly understood. I didn't know anything about it until about 5 years ago when Graham Hancock went on one of Rogan's podcasts, Joe Rogan's, and talked about it. But yeah, absolutely. If not ancient flooding, ancient rain, like massive amounts of rainfall. Does it actually indicate flooding?
Well, it's both. So and here's the kicker is that allegedly the Sphinx is 4,200 years old. But the last time the Nile Delta region had any significant amounts of rainfall at all was like 7,000 BC. So like 9,000 years ago. So like that right there doubles the alleged age of the Sphinx. So whether it's Dr. Robert Schock had said that it's the result of rainfall. So flooding, rain, whatever, the point is that region was not this barren, dry desert as we see it today. It implies that this thing was constructed far further back in time than it was supposed to have. That's the implication. So whether it's rainwater that created a flooding or it's just steady rain or whatever it was, different from today. That's kind of the
Sphinx
thing that's so striking about it.
I feel like the humans in the savannah worshipped the cat so much because of its ability to hunt its ability to chill with the humans, and that they used to hunt the war mammoths. Like the war mammoths dominated the plateaus and the savannas, but then they eventually started working together with the cats. The humans did, and the cats would come tear at the Achilles of these giant elephants. Then they'd come down. Then the humans would come up with their spears and finish them off. It's just a vision I have in my head. So they built this great monument they carved it out of the rock of this giant lion, and then some idiot pharaoh came by 8,000 years later and ripped its face open and carved his dad's face on it. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think, there's no doubt someone recarved it. I mean, just, you could tell it's like the newest part of it all. It looks all nice and new compared to the rest of it. It's all eroded.
Like way back. It looks so stupid.
Yeah.
Like
it got messed with.
That's so, those pharaohs were just such
They're
posers.
assholes. I want to make a video like what ancient asshole, like the picture of the face of him, like ancient asshole. Like this guy's a prick.
For real. Here we got
what a narcissistic scumbag.
I know, dude. The pharaohs, and they just I'll keep going. Adega Outlaw. I have an interesting artifact that looks like ancient intelligence from Colorado River. I could send you an image on X if you want. Yes, please do.
Yeah.
I like images of. We have some more super chats if you're down. We have a few more.
Yeah.
Let's follow this up. Rockstar Podcast. Rock and roll, baby. And I agree with you. The Indian Jesus coming in hot. Thanks again for coming on the channel. Epic show today.
My pleasure. We have to do it again. I want to go back on your show. You come on my show. Let's do it again. Like this is a good time.
I did the Indian Jesus as well.
We got to link up. We met, when I went out there for the Timcast, and I'm like, dude, I was so excited to meet you because I'm like, I knew you and I are on the same wavelength with our curiosity, and I'm like, so I knew it hit off.
We will. Yes, I agree 100%.
Yeah,
in
we
fact,
got some ideas that we've been talking about behind the scenes. So we'll
yes,
everyone posted.
Yeah. So without telling
time.
anyone, we're going to do something. We have been talking about things. Atlantis is found. Odd on how he doesn't care to comment on my bold claims with evidence presented, Poseidon with his trident, etc. But before Jimmy comments, I don't see the evidence that you're talking about. Maybe you sent it somewhere. I just see a humpy rock of blurry mountain looks on the bottom of the ocean on your picture. But if you have actual evidence, like where is it?
Yeah, I need to see a better scan of that area under the ocean that's beyond Google Earth. I understand what you're saying, but I need to know, like, how big was it? What does it look like? Like, an actual survey of it. Anything's possible, but hey, listen, man, I get sent all kinds of things and everyone wants someone to look at it. And I'm like, I can only look at so many things. So what I would encourage this gentleman, I wish I knew his name, is keep digging into this. Like find the next, keep focus on this area and find out what you could find from some sort of deep sea surveyor that goes beyond the Google image. And if you're onto something, it will catch people's attention and I'll blast it out, once I see more, but don't feel discouraged. Like, I just don't know enough about it. I only know what I see. On these images that you've shared, which is your biopic, and stuff I've seen on Twitter. So I just haven't seen enough, but don't be discouraged, my friend. Keep digging.
When people find really good evidence, what's the best place for you to receive it?
Honestly, at this point now, since I've been paying so much attention on Twitter, I'd say there. I'm paying attention on Twitter. Now I've been taken up a notch, so I don't see all notifications. You go to bed and there's so many, you're not going to have time to scroll through all of them. But if something gets traction nowadays, we kind of see it. The algorithms of Twitter have improved so much that, if people are blasting something out that involves me or has my name on it, I'll usually see it now. Usually, unless I'm blocked. There's people that despise me that have me blocked and they can talk about me all they want. I don't even know.
Be sure to unblock Jimmy Corsetti. Keith, for the pyramids, couldn't each schedule of stones have been covered in sand? Then the next level been drug upon the hill, and then repeat until done. Each schedule of stones. So you're saying each stone covered in sand, and then the next level been drug up the hill because there's sand on it. You're saying it would reduce the friction of the pulling.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe. I was actually thinking maybe they used hot air balloons, because if you have enough of them, if you had 60 hot air balloons all attached to a giant platform, that would create a lot of lift. And then you could get these humongous blocks and maybe guide the balloons with rope from the ground and walk them to their destination. I don't know enough about it. We could do an entire episode on the formation of the pyramids, I think. We got another one here from Troy Benson. Ian, Jimmy. Had Ben Davidson from Suspicious Observers on his channel. Oh, Jimmy had Ben Davidson from Suspicious Observers on his channel. You need to talk to him about the electric universe. Did you guys get into that?
Yeah, so he's super into the sun cycles and micronova and the pole shifts, and he's like this. He's space weather news on Twitter, and no one's digging deeper into this than Ben Davidson. He's
Well,
taught me a lot.
if you can put me in touch with him, I'd love to interview him.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Oh, that's awesome. And we got one last super chat from MTE. Would we be able to get a geopolymer presentation by Jimmy in the future? Thank you for the hard work, Jimmy.
You bet. I have multiple things to say about this. One, in Egypt, not geopolymer. I would say in Pumapunku in South America looks, and even the stones in Cusco, to me, are geopolymer, were formed in some way. I only say about Egypt is that you can see the quarries there. I have pictures of like seashells in the limestone. If they were geopolymer, all right, so all of the stones in the pyramid are not one-offs. They're all different sizes. If they were geopolymer, you would have like a one-off casting like size and like they'd repeat it. Boom, boom, So there's a lot of reasons why I don't think that the pyramids are geopolymer. But yeah, I think a presentation sharing like the examples where I think it's feasible and not feasible. But as far as I'm concerned, in South America, they did that.
What is geopolymer?
Like a form of concrete, like essentially they made stone essentially. I used to think that was like not like possible, but I've looked into a bit. I've seen example. Pumapunku really truly looks like that. If you have to look it up. It looks like formed concrete. And there's certain features about it that indicate that it would be.
Pumapunku.
But yeah, but people will say like about granite, and granite can't be the nature of granite itself and how there's quartz inside of it. Like you can't melt it down like that. It's the nature of itself is how it was formed. And there's quarries out there, these granite quarries. So it's like, yeah, that right there, that site. There's some wild stuff about this that would indicate that it was more of a
interesting. So they're making concrete, mixing rock and stone and crystal and heating it up.
Others will explain it better than me, but yeah, I think I should make a presentation.
That's pretty cool. All right. That's thanks for the super chats, everyone, and thanks for being part of this badass convo, Jimmy.
Yeah, this is funny, and dude, we got to do this again soon.
Let's do it on your Rumble channel, man.
Yeah,
we can talk about the pyramids, and we can talk about Baalbeck, where you just were in Syria, Lebanon. What was that? I mean, people that want to, have you made a video about it yet?
No, I'm working on it. It's going to be what I consider to be the best argument showing that there was a lost civilization that were doing things that exceed anything we thought possible. The best examples are in Baalbeck. I tell people, go look up the trilithon stones in Baalbeck, Lebanon, 900 tons a piece. And there was other stones in the quarry that are even larger, and it just exceeds any capability of the Romans. The Romans didn't document anything about it. It's the smoking gun in my mind. I'm like, physics alone, this site is next level. It's just next level. And they managed to move 3 900-ton stones and lift them and stack them 30 feet off the ground. It is an achievement like nothing else. And it's just inexplicable. The Romans didn't document who did it or when, despite documenting everything else. Now, I believe the Romans built on top of that site, but the foundation of the site itself is so insane, and most people don't even know about it. It's
you sent me some of the images. They're stunning. And then with you standing next to the rocks, I mean, I imagine you were saying getting your eyeballs on it, like when you're right there is like, it's otherworldly.
When you take pictures of it, especially with a wide angle lens, like you can envision like, okay, look how tall he is compared to it. Oh my God, it's amazing. But there's something about it when you're in person. And I remember just being surprised when you see, anyone can appreciate this. You know that when you see something in person, it's like, oh, this is bigger than I thought it would be. But there, it's like even more so. It's very imposing. You're like, it takes you back. You're like, what? This is stupid big kind of a thing. It's like, this is so ridiculously big. It's like, the pictures just don't do it justice, which is one of the fun reasons why people need to travel. Okay. That place getting dangerous now. I don't know if I'd encourage people to go to Baalbeck at this time with that regional road going a little crazy. I mean, you can probably still do it, but it is in Hezbollah-controlled region of Lebanon.
Wow.
Hezbollah is the government there. Literally, you go through military checkpoints, several of them, just to get there. It was safe when I was there. I had no problem, but this was early September. And the world has changed so much now since early September, regrettably. And Hezbollah is a player in that too now. But from what I understand, it's still a safe place as of today.
All right,
bad things aren't happening in Lebanon, but right to the south there are bad things happening, as we all know.
If you're going to travel, take your personal safety very seriously always. I think self-defense and learning tactics and training is just something you should do anyway for peace of mind. Yeah. And all right, so Jimmy Corsetti, my man. People
Ian,
follow.
Total pleasure,
dude. Follow Jimmy on Bright Insight on YouTube. There's links in the description. Everywhere on the internet, Jimmy Corsetti. You're gonna find a Bright Insight 6 on Twitter, whatever. It's whatever.
Yep.
Bright Insight 6.
And I'm on Instagram. Instagram's trash. I can't stand anything affiliated with Mark Zuckerberg. The guy's such trash. But I'm on there and I make posts on there and I share things. So I'm still playing that game for a little bit. But
I'll see if I can get you and Mark in the room at the same time, and we'll work through some stuff. But I agree. We got to open source the software code. Let's do it.
Yeah, and that Jimmy guy needs to come back to planet Earth. That guy made all his money. What's wrong with him? Anyways,
Zuckerberg.
That next time.
All right. See you, man. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.